Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Honey Flow Show. Welcome YouTube and Facebook as well. If you're watching, my home base is actually twitch.tv/DJ Honeyflow. So make your way down to Twitch. That's where you're going to see most of the comments as well. And it's completely free to follow, to join. Even if you don't want to follow, you could still sit back and click on Twitch and check out the chat room and hang out with us as well. So yeah, welcome YouTube and Facebook. Good to see you guys. And of course, my Twitch community here. Now we got a really great story, you guys. I'm really excited to, bring our next guest. It's going to be a little bit different. The stories I want to try to bring kind of moving forward are a little bit more inspirational, something that's going to kind of make you think as well. And I know over the 4 years, I've been interviewing a lot of streamers, DJs, people in entertainment, producers, singers, rappers, but now I kind of want to switch gears and find more stories in people. So if you have an inspirational story, if you've gone through a loss or a trial or some type of hardship or something through the pandemic, like all of us have, definitely DM me. You don't need to be a streamer, but I am looking for people that are open to share their stories, whatever they're going through, whatever they're struggling with, because our stories really do help other people out there, which is definitely the heartbeat and the mission that I want to have on this show moving forward. So yeah, this guest really excites me, you guys. We met in a very interesting way. We'll probably talk about it when I bring him in. His name's Raymond MOWLA, and he's, I hope I pronounced the last name right. I should have asked him actually, but I'm sure he'll correct me. But Raymond, he seems like a great guy, has a really amazing story. I'm going to let him share it as we go through the show, and hopefully it's going to reach and help someone tonight on my show that's tuned in. So so I'm sure more people will start filtering in. So let's bring him in. He's from Toronto, Canada as well, and is an author. He's a gospel rapper. He's community driven. He works in a prison now. And his story, I think, led him to all the things that he's doing now, which is amazing. So let's bring in Raymond right now. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I was just sitting here thinking to myself that this is 2 hours and I should have probably got some drinks.
Oh, you can grab a drink if you want. That's okay. But
So I think
yeah,
yeah.
it goes by super fast. Like, trust me, people always come on my show. They're like, Honey Flo, what are we going to talk about for 2 hours? I'm not that interesting. Like, all the guys are sweating, but they're usually on here for like 4 hours. So yeah. But have you done a lot of different talk shows? And I know you've been on a lot of shows and such.
Yeah. I think churches that I've had the opportunity to speak at, obviously you get more allotted time. For television programming, it's a lot of recording, but it's cut down to maybe 5-10 minutes at the very most that I've seen so far. So a lot of content they're trying to fit in, really summarize. So it doesn't always give me the opportunity to tell the whole story. So I'm actually looking forward to this.
Yeah, for sure. I know my friends have been on CBN and 100 Huntley Street for their stories. And they told me the same thing, that they talked for hours and it was literally cut in like a 5-minute. But that's the world of TV, right? So it's kind of interesting that way. Yeah. So we're going to go back. We're going to wait because I know it takes a few minutes or some time for people to start filtering in the room. So are you actually originally from Ontario or from Toronto?
Yeah, born and raised in Mississauga. Lived there all my life. Moved around Mississauga quite a bit throughout my life, but always landed somewhere in Mississauga.
Okay, nice. So what was it, basically like growing up for you? Like, some of the things that you did, back then, I guess, when you were growing up.
It depends on how far back you want to go. Like, you talking about childhood, or are you talking about adolescence?
Like, yeah, I guess, yeah, just in your teens, when you're younger, like what it was kind of like growing up in Mississauga as well. Oh, and I was going to say thanks. Oh, Kent, Mr. Kent Minister. I feel like I keep calling you Kent Minister. Kent Mister. Thank you so much for the subscription. I see that there. appreciate you as well. And thanks for coming through and helping me. My new moderator that's joined my team, so I'm super excited to have him. Yeah, so just basically growing up kind of in your teen years, the things you did in Mississauga and
Yeah, I guess when I look back at it now, it's like I find that a lot of my childhood years were kind of spent trying to distract myself. Um, I mean, there was a lot of fun things that we did. There's a lot of destructive things that we did as kids growing up, but it was mostly, I guess, because at a very, very young age, I started asking myself big questions about life. And I mean, as early as 8, 9, 10 years old, I was trying to understand things to reconcile family dynamics and issues at home, to reconcile this disparity I found between the environment of my family situation and the world around me. Because my parents are like, well, I'm considered first generation, born here, but my parents are from South America. They were brought up in Guyana, completely different culture, completely different backdrop to Canada. Um, so it kind of creates a bit of a conflicting environment to be growing up at home in one, um, you know, uh, culture and even belief system, I'd say worldview, and then experiencing that in Canada, but seeing the difference in the friendships that I had and even just the community at large around me. So yeah, I guess there was definitely a disconnect. I struggled. It was confusing for me, and like I said, I had a lot of big questions about life and just trying to formulate what it is I believe about life. And a lot of my decision making in the early years of my life, I guess it came out of that wrestling to kind of understand, why am I here? Is there a purpose to me being here? Is there any greater purpose for my life, and how do I find those things out? Just searching for meaning, I guess.
yeah, that's interesting that you were thinking that kind of at a younger age, because most people don't really think about that until maybe the end of their life or until they're like seniors or older. But that's interesting that you're kind of thinking about those questions earlier on as well.
I,
Yeah.
I think what shaped that was also because of the religious adherence we had as Muslims. I was brought up in a Muslim household, started going to the mosque at an early age, uh, taught about Allah as God, and the kind of like the character of who he was and is communicated as someone who is not only worthy of worship but demands it. The Muslim practice was very systematic, if I could say it that way, and regimented is probably a better word, in that way. That was kind of like you had to do these things, but is anybody asking the question, like, why are we doing these things, and how do we know this is even true, that you spend your whole life doing these things? And because I had relatives and eventually when I went to school, peers who come from completely different backgrounds and belief systems. How do we know we got it right? How do we know that something that they believe isn't right? Or so I think that seeing all of these different expressions of religion and then practice, what the flow of a person's life based on their belief system look like, and how at least I was interpreting that at the time. Yeah, it definitely drummed up more questions than my parents could answer at the time for me.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm just in the middle of I'm trying to download your video. I'm listening to what you're saying as well. How are you doing, Teresa? Good to see you. Is your family, any of your family in the room, actually? Do you know?
My,
Or
I'm not.
watching?
I am not sure.
Oh, you're not sure. Oh, okay. All right. We got Kent, Mr. in the room as well, and I'm sure more people will be coming in too as we go along. It's interesting how you kind of questioned the faith that you believed in, like being, Muslim. before. But wouldn't you say it's kind of the same thing now with, being Christian? Would you say it's kind of the same? Because those same questions, you say, well, how do you know you got it right? Like, it's like you say that within your own religion, but then I'm sure there are lots of people out there saying the same thing about being Christian, right?
Yeah, and literally the answer to these questions, like they didn't come to me intellectually all of a sudden and ascribing to a different belief. It was a journey of about 20 years, which I really believe in my heart when I look back, started with a prayer because like I got to the point even as a child where being frustrated with the demand of the religion, the the guilt and shame I carried by being just kind of honest as a child. I think that the childlikeness in me could kind of easily recognize that, sometimes I think evil things, and when my parents aren't looking, I'm saying things maybe I shouldn't say or doing things I shouldn't do. And I could see that I don't know if hypocrisy is the right word, but that there's something inside of me that has this propensity towards these things that I seem to know are wrong. And I guess because of the framework of the belief system I came up with and the like you're aspiring to and you're trying to accomplish righteousness by being this super devout religious person, praying, 5 times a day, visiting the mosque, reciting surahs, hundreds of times. I remember my mom once taught me that because I got a lot of my teachings from her and then from the Quran and the prayer books. And she would say that, the more times you pray, the more blessings you'll get. And as a child, I mean, I don't have any framework for interpreting the validity of what she's saying. I'm kind of taking her at her word. So I figured, I mean, if I prayed 100 times before I go to bed, does that mean God would hear me? Does that mean something in my life would change? And so I'm repeating these surahs that I'm taught to pray. Or prayer wasn't the language that I've learned in most recent years it to be. It was a very even systematic thing, a very regimented thing. You're saying kind of the same, reciting the same surahs again and again, and that wasn't lending any real relational connection to me and God. Like at least the God that I guess some part of me wanted to believe was real, that there's a God I can just converse with, someone who hears me and speaks to what I'm actually going through rather than me just offering these uh, constant reciting and hoping to be heard and hoping that he knows best. So yeah, like the between the conflict of just being honest with myself and knowing that if he is God and he does exist, that he sees it all. Like, I mean, he's not missing it for my good behavior at the times when I'm at the mosque. He's seeing the
Mhm.
whole picture, and just being honest with myself that, I don't think I can actually live up to this thing with integrity. I decided at an early age to just kind of cast it off. I'm like, unless there's a God out there that's willing to be so real with me that he shows up and makes it clear to me that this is who he is, I don't really want nothing to do with religion or any of that stuff anymore. And I I kind of made this confession almost like I'm saying it right now in a prayer, like that was for the first time I think communicating something that wasn't reciting something repetitively. It was just me talking transparently, like, God, you show up and show me there's a reason to believe, and I'll believe. Until then, I'm on my own. I'm doing things the way I feel like. So that kind of is what catapulted me into like a worldview now that where I was my own God, so to speak. Like I'm making decision, I'm deciding what's right and wrong. I'm deciding how far and where I want to draw the lines, and kind of creating my own boundaries of whatever. And that 20-year journey, I think that God allowed me to 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 venture through was kind of like a journey of getting to the end of myself. Um, it's almost like him just lovingly waiting for me to come to him with the right posture after trying it my way, at which he knew was bound to fail.
I think he usually lets us come to the end of our rope. I think usually with the wheels falling off before we actually decide, hey, maybe he's actually real. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I think sometimes it takes a lot of people, including myself, to hit rock bottom before you finally let go and say, okay, maybe he is real. Maybe he can, he does love me, or he's doing something active in my life, right? How you doing, King Melody? Good to see you as well. This guy I was telling you about, I feel like you and Raymond are definitely going to connect somehow, some way today. So I'm super excited that you're also here, King Melody. We got Kent Mister, my new moderator. Welcome to the team. Thanks for helping me. I appreciate you. We got Teresa Garcia, and thank you for the sub earlier. Teresa, thank you for the bits earlier. Garcia, I appreciate you. We got my Steeda in the house. This guy's got a Mustang in his garage, and it's all lit up. His garage is bigger than our places in Toronto. Well, maybe not your sister's, because your sister's looks like the hospital. We thought we were pulling up to the hospital because her place is massive, man. But she's probably along the lines of my Steeda. Um, so yeah, you got to check out his show. He does a great show too. Thanks for coming through, you guys. This is going to be kind of a different special. We got DJ Filipino in the building. Going to be interviewing him. My Steed, I keep bugging you. When are you going to come on my talk show? I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's see here. Yeah, so great to see all you guys. Thanks for coming through. So we're going to definitely get into his story a bit. I just downloaded it actually while he was talking. And I was going to say, because this is such a music channel, like I'm in entertainment, obviously, we meet hundreds of DJs across the world globally on Twitch. How did you get into music too? Like, what inspired you, and how old were you around when you really kind of had a love for music? Because your music's actually really good
I
too.
was I was just talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, and we were naming off all these old radio stations like CIUT, and I think that was 89.5 or 88.1. One of them, I remember I would tune in late at night, and they had this hip hop show, and it was just amazing. It was like I never heard music like this on the radio before. You didn't see music videos like this on TV until um, I forget what that guy's name was for Rap City, that he came about with that show. And then the generation, like the culture sort of shifted, and we saw a little bit more of it. But this, at the time when I heard this form and expression of hip hop and just what they were saying, it's like it not only did it sound so dang cool, but they were really talking about deep things, like, and masterfully communicating how they felt about these things. Like the vocabulary, the slang, even all of it, it just mesmerized me. I was like, this is amazing. So at a young age, I kind of got into it with some friends in my neighborhood and stuff. We started doing like these little freestyle things when we got together and hanging out and stuff like that. And I just absolutely loved that. And we could see over time, like, how each person was kind of developing their craft and their style, and even their like their personality as an artist, in expressing that, like how that hip hop personality even influenced other areas of their life. Um, and so it's always been a love of mine. I didn't actually get into music professionally until 2019, and it was such a huge roundabout thing, because the kind of the story we were talking about earlier, that was 20 years in the making, that started at around 10 years old, and I came to faith, and made the shift to becoming a Christian at 30. Um, I was kind of at a place in my life where I was like, I'm too old to be rapping and stuff like that still, and whatever, and it's something I really loved, but something I felt like I was putting away for the sake of some ascribing to be mature. And it was like, it was God who challenged me. It was like, I kept finding these opportunities and these people who would kind of encourage me in this way, that this is actually something that is God given. It's a lyrical gift is definitely something everybody like has to work on and develop. But I mean, if you're willing to start the process, it's never too late to to see where you know, like, you can go with it and how you can be that voice to communicate a message that's meaningful to you, to others. And so that's how I wanted to use music. I wanted it to be an outlet for, um, not only a message that encourage others and help them to understand difficult concepts and things like that, but a lot of my motivation came from, like, throughout those many years in between, of just listening to, you know, the Nina Simones and how they shaped, and their voice helped people to think about, um, things that were going on in the culture at the time. And that was the very way I wanted to be able to use music to not only communicate the voice of a culture, but also to be a leader in the culture, and like, offer direction through music.
Nice. Now, I'm just looking at your music too. I'm trying to download a few things there as well. My Steeda, thank you so much for the bits. Appreciate you as well. I'm looking at another computer here as well as the chat. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with Twitch, but sometimes we get raids in, so other shows will raid into your show. So I'm hoping that'll happen today, but we'll see. And then people are contributing as well to your show. So I see this all on another computer. I don't think you could see everything. In case you're wondering why does she keep stopping and
Yeah.
thanking or doing this or doing that? It's that's just kind of how Twitch works.
Okay.
And then you greet everyone that comes in your room because it's kind of like a house party. Like uh, usually, you know, the community is so so great here on this app that you stop and you kind of greet people as well too. So just in case you see me talking about bits or raids or welcoming in the middle of your story, that's why.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we got M. Lewis in the building. Good to see you as well. He's from Toronto as well. My Steeda, thank you again for the bits. Appreciate you. Odell says we got to do a posture check. So I guess, you know, they get us doing different things here. So I'll just straighten up, do a
I just
posture check.
I just sent you a link. This song is actually coming out tomorrow, so you wouldn't have access to it beforehand. But I sent it to you anyways, so that maybe if that's among those you want to share this evening. Uh,
Okay, great. That's in the Gmail. You just sent in my Gmail?
yeah.
Okay, so I'll definitely check that out too. Now, what do you say to people? Because my mom actually said this the other day. So don't worry, you can say whatever you feel. But my mom's like, "Come on, Honey Flo." Well, I won't give my real name, but she's like, "You're kind of old now. Like, you're not seriously going to listen to hip hop till you're 60, right? Like, you're seriously not going to be doing this till you're 60, are you?" Because all my family thinks it's like quite ridiculous. But I look at it that if you love sports or if you have a passion for something, right? I went to an orchestra the other day and you could tell that they're passionate full-time artists, but it's so hard to explain to people that don't really get it, you know? But she could not get it for the life of me. She's like, "Well, that's more for a youth thing or that's more for younger people. Like why would you even you're not seriously going to be like listening to this music till you're like 60, are you?" I go, "Well, I probably will be listening to music till I'm 90." So what do you say to comments maybe like that people kind of say?
I'm someone who, as much as I love hip hop music, and I find that this is, you know, a bit of my lane to express myself this way. I'm not a singer. I couldn't sing a song if I wanted to, and there's actually been a few times throughout this journey where I really wish I had the ability to sing, because when I get to writing, and I'm looking for, like, this inspiration comes to me for a particular type of song, I can't express it. And it's actually one of the things that, um, kind of directed me towards a lot of collaborations. Like, I actually found that, just as I kind of think of, there's the scriptural verse that talks about all of us being the members of the same body. We're this one body, but one person's an arm and another person's a leg. I'm like, the thing I can't do, if I can connect with someone who is able to do it and I can write the lyrics for them and they can express it for me, it's an extension of me. And I started to see it that way. And so I started to seek out a lot of vocalists who are able to do that, to express it that way for me. But in terms of the music I listen to, like I listen to everything from 70s, 80s, even as far back as the 60s, I'd say, and right into the 90s. And there's a few things here and there I dabble with like new music that has come out, but I'm kind of almost stuck in an era of like 50 years of specific kind of music, and it's every genre. And I mean, I I don't think that when you have an appreciation for music as a whole, unless your appreciation is very specific to a particular type of genre or something, which mine isn't, I can see how, oh, other expressions aren't gonna resonate with you or whatever, and that's fine. It's never been me, so it's never been my issue. And I mean, it's kind of a limited issue. I like a thing. I think that you limit yourself to only one genre, because it's like limiting yourself to watching one TV show when there's all these, multitudes of expressions of storylines in so many different ways. Like, who would do that? It's not something I view as someone looking down on me or my style. I think they're actually quite limited in uh in the way that they're maybe framing how they view the music culture, to kind of land there.
Yeah, music can definitely be inspirational and you could still use it. And, someone said DJ should have been, I know it may sound ridiculous to some, but we had nurses, doctors in here during the pandemic. I had people in the ER working and listening to my show saying it was helping them get through, like playing some lovers rock or cultured music. And so it's like you never, like, people say that DJs during the pandemic should have been, in a sense, essential workers too, because we're helping so many people that were kind of in our chat rooms. Some were sick, some didn't, weren't well and were tuning into us, right? So there's a lot of things going on that I think music is powerful, right? And it can speak to people and inspire people as well. There's just been too many stories online of that, right? Oh, DJ Filipino. That's what I told my mom. Thank you. DJ Filipino says I'm 64. And I know some people, yeah, I have an older audience too. I would say anywhere from 35 to probably 70s or even higher that tune into my show, right? It's quite the range. Oh, Dell says he's 48. See what I mean? I'm going to print screen this and send this to my mom. But yeah, there's just some things that they just don't understand, or friends may not understand what you're doing too, especially in entertainment, but they also don't get all the private messages and the DMs and people. I have a whole list of people that I'm literally praying for, like a whole slew of people. It's probably over 100 people. I don't think they really know up until today, but I've been writing down their names and, if they're sick or if they lost someone, or just so I remember. And I think that's powerful, right? That you can be used for even like even on little apps, but people
Yeah.
may not always understand what you're doing, right?
I started writing just in general, and I mean like blogs and things like that, about 12 years ago. And I found that there was so much good content, but it only appeals to like a very particular type of person, the person, who enjoys reading. For everybody else, it's going to be something left unopened, or they'll just skim through and move on. But music was like this other avenue of an extension of the same thing. You're communicating a message, but you're doing it through a medium that resonates with someone different, a different audience. And so, yeah, I think even that was kind of like an expansion in my own becoming, of finding that I didn't have to stay kind of segregated to one lane. I can kind of branch out and do these expressions in different forms, and music just happens to be one of them.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask. I'm just checking my Gmail. I don't see it in here for some reason. It's not coming through. But is it on your YouTube or no? You haven't posted on your YouTube yet. The
No.
song that you'd like me to play? I just downloaded Dear Mama. Is there anything on your YouTube that you would like me to play as well? Like any specific songs I could try to download maybe one or two. I'm not sure if I get hit by copywriting because I seem to get hit all the time by Facebook and YouTube, even though it's your own content. I
Yeah.
don't know if they would do that. Like if you did a cover song to another instrumental, probably, and they just kind of block the show, which I don't want it blocked. So I'd probably only play a little snippet, not the full song. But I did download. I think it was, which one was that? Dear Mama. Is there anything else maybe on your YouTube you'd like me to download or play? I can't seem to get. I don't know why it's not coming through my Gmail, but it isn't showing that there's a message here at all, which is kind of strange.
The Revivalist mixtape, that was a really fun project. I just finished an album earlier this year. Kind of this circle of people who have kind of been walking this journey with Jay Rhythmatic, Rayon, Anthony, Cloud9, Tamara Rosa, and Daniela, or she's known also as V, that we all kind of got back together and got in the studio in May, and we put together an album. It's on there called Theophany. And that was just, that was like heaven on earth for me. Anytime we're in here and we're just playing an instrumental and trying to etch out what is this going to be about and whatever, it was really fun. There's a lot of cool tracks on that album too.
Okay, I'm going to see if I could download that. I don't know, it's 10 minutes, so anything less than maybe 5 would be good. But I'm going to try to see if it works, to convert it from YouTube to an MP4. And hopefully it'll work. So yeah,
that is really short. I did these freestyle snippets throughout the year. There's the Think It Over 60-second freestyle. That one's 1:25. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let's see here. I'm gonna try to have a look at that. It's called Think It Over. Let's see here. I want you guys to hear his stuff because he's also a rapper, really, really good. Like you have some really good singers on there. I was able to check out a lot of your content, like a lot of your music, and it is actually really, really good. So
thanks.
Let's see here. I'm just trying to look for it. How come I can't see it? I see I Love You 60 seconds. It's probably in there somewhere, right? Let's see. Think It Over. Oh, I don't see it. Let's see. Okay, well, I'll kind of look for it. And if I don't, then I'll try to play something else that's a bit shorter. Okay, perfect. So yeah, welcome you guys. Thanks for coming through. Yeah, Mr. says in the chat, I agree, music helps in so many ways. I mean, it was therapy for a lot of streamers, and a lot of people have passed away too. I think it's been like 7 or 8 since I started Twitch. It's been a lot more, but that have specifically come through my show or have helped me, like a moderator and people that have been in the chats, people that have come through, multiple DJs since the pandemic. So when you think about it, it's like you could have been that last voice even for them, or the last show or the last something that they would have watched. So I think it's still pretty powerful as well. Here's Father Damien too. He's a priest and a house DJ on Twitch as well. That's why I think God has a sense of humor. And the crazy thing is he's Guyanese too. So are you. Like it's just crazy. I think there was one time I told him do you know the song? I'm sure you know, Tiny Whiny?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I was at a gospel event playing for this like big, I think her name, I'm going to call her out now. I think her name was Katie Good News. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She was like a big New Yorker that moved out here, and she was big on Joy FM or one of those stations. So I did her party, and it was like, mostly Caribbean people and African people. And so I started playing a lot of reggae and lovers rock and soca. Like it was a lot of West Indian people together, like everyone, right? And I wasn't familiar with Tiny Whiny, and I'm like, oh, let me play this song. It kind of sounds like Follow the Leader. Like I had no idea what it was really. I'm just like, oh, it sounds innocent, whatever. It sounds like something my parents would listen to. So I play it, And this a woman pastor started running in her heels, and she's like this to me, cut the music. And as a DJ, you see everything in slow motion. So it's like, ah, grr. Like she was super angry, right? She's like, what are you doing? So I had 500 people on the dance floor, like very confused. Like, do we dance? Do we not dance? They kind of paused. And so, anyways, I'm sharing this story with Father Damien, and I thought he was Filipino. And everyone's like, stop talking about whatever talking about dance hall and all kinds of craziness. And then this priest comes in my room, and that's how we became friends. And my mods are like, stop the channel, stop the show, stop talking. So those are kind of funny stories, but I feel like you need grace, right? Like she was not super kind at the event. She was very mad. And I worked so hard at that event. Like I literally spent like 15, 20 hours prepping for an event to make sure it was perfect, right? Because I was playing secular music, I was playing gospel music. I made one little mistake. I didn't think Tiny Whiny was that bad. Like, shake your boom boom. Okay, well, sure, you probably don't hear it in the church often, but I didn't think it was that bad. And then my Jamaican friends are like, honey Flo, they didn't say boom boom, they said something else. And so my West Indian friends, my Guyanese Trini friends are fighting and with Jamaicans because my Jamaican friends are like, no, they meant it this way. And then my West Indian friends are like, no, they always think it's this way, but it's not that way. You know what I mean? So it was just like, have you ever done anything crazy like that and you didn't really mean to? Like had a funny situation like that if you're on stage or performing?
I'm sure that there's been stuff like that. Not in performances. I haven't done a whole lot of performances. I get invited to do things often, but that's not really, I guess, my motivation behind music and what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of turned down a lot of opportunities to do stuff like that. It's really just the production message and the collaboration. There's a few other elements of just working with other artists and giving them the opportunity and the voice to express themselves that is very meaningful to me and what I've been trying to do with music, and even helping them to develop as artists. That's been more so the focus than the
Yeah,
con-
Father Davian's like, you were talking about pumpkin. Yeah, I was because I didn't realize pumpkin was something else. I thought it was a girl's personality. So I'm going around asking all the women, ladies, do you like when a guy calls you thick like a dumpling or uh, what is it, sweet like pumpkin? That that song. I don't know if you know that song. And I realized from my Jamaican friends, I didn't realize what pumpkin was. I thought it was a girl's personality. So, anyways, that's when a priest came in, Father Damien. And that's when my mods were like, cut the show. Like they're freaking out. They're not even religious at all. And they're telling me to stop. So it was a pretty humorous moment between all of us. And now we've all become good friends. Hey, Celebrity Drew, how are you doing? Great to see you. It's been a minute. Thanks for coming through. I hear you often on Flow, the radio station. So proud of you and just all the things that you're doing. Like he's on pretty much like daily, I think now. Do you know who Celebrity Drew is? I don't know if you ever listened to Flow or not, or the hip hop station, but yeah, he's doing really good. So definitely got the voice for Toronto now. So great to see you. M. Lewis, he did the Jerk Fest as well. We got Odell from Chicago, Father Damien, the Blend Master. Who else do we have in the building? Oh, Eliza Breeza, good to see you. Just went out for dinner with her or lunch the other day. Great to see you guys. Thanks for coming through. So yeah, you should definitely get out there because I really feel like you have really good quality content. Like I see a lot of rappers and singers and artists, but I feel like you definitely have that package to get out there more and start performing too.
We'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I've had opportunities. It's just not something that's ever really appealed to me. I think
Mm.
like it's so funny because there's an aspect to me, and I think probably more so like when I was younger in my 20s and stuff where I mean, don't get me wrong, I wild out in parties and did all of that good stuff that, that people do when they're growing up. Um, I just feel like I'm in a different season in my life and, um, I don't know. We'll see.
Mhm. No, I get that. Do you ever miss or do you ever feel tempted to kinda go back? And we're gonna get into your story definitely, pretty soon as well, but do you ever feel when I look at I think I saw a picture of you back in the day, and of course, we're younger, like, you I didn't know you before, but you look like a totally different person. Like, that doesn't even look like who you are now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But do you ever, like, when you look back, do you ever miss or feel tempted to kinda go back to certain things that maybe you might have done before in the past, or no? Do you feel like, "Hey, I've seen everything and I'm good?" Like
There's this certain perspective I've kinda developed in the last 12 years in looking back in my life that I feel like coming to faith when I was 30 was such a timely thing for me that what the years prior to that looked like, I kind of went out in all these different directions and all these different ways and tested all kinds of different boundaries and waters and stuff like that of things that um, I've seen both sides of. I see the curiosity side of, but I also see the how it can hurt a person's life and the ways that it hurts people's lives and relationships and all these different things that like it's almost asking to go back to nothing when I think of it from the vantage point that I'm standing nowadays. That I don't feel like I've lost anything. I feel like where I'm going is where I found everything. So
Mhm.
there's not a lot of pull to go back to anything really.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think once you've kinda done everything or seen a lot of stuff, I don't know if there's I think that's when you see people change, like, do such a drastic change, I think it makes them realize, "Hey, I've been through hell and back. I've been through some of that stuff." It's like there's no longer maybe temptation with it. I'm not quite sure, but that's what I've seen with people that kind of, have seen a lot, right, and have been through a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. And I wouldn't even say that there's no longer temptation with it. Like,
Mhm.
because I mean, you hear about there, you know, people from my old circles are still out there partying on a Friday night and stuff like that. And sometimes Friday nights are boring. Like they really are sometimes for me. Um, it's just that I guess my perspective is more far reaching than enjoying any single day alone and forgetting, like I'm a dedicated minister to prisoners, like I'm a, you know, someone who's being a mentor to other musicians. There's so much substance in my life that is so valuable to me, um, that I don't want to do anything to compromise that over, you know, something foolish that could easily go sideways. And I've been a part of it long enough to see that it's not long before it usually does go sideways. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I totally get that. So, when you were younger, did you kind of envision that you would wanna be something or someone, or were you ever, like, kind of a dreamer when you were younger that wanted to aspire to something, especially coming from the environment you came from, or was that not really, like, in you?
Yeah, I definitely had aspirations. I really didn't know how to figure out what direction I would go. I remember in grade 6, we had this, it's kinda like career fair day where you're part of this community that they created in the classroom where you could be, the profession of choice that you think that you'd wanna be one day, and I showed up at the thing with my little briefcase and stuff, hoping to be a lawyer, and, I even had this law textbook. It was like a law dictionary that I stuffed into that briefcase to take with me, and I'd read that at home and was trying to learn about law. I mean, this was like grade 6, and just, you know, wondering if, one day I'd be a lawyer. There was a time where I wanted to be a fireman. There was a time where, you know, so many different things I thought about. Um, I don't think anything lit a fire under me that I was so passionate about, um, that, like I feel at a loss that I didn't become. And it's so funny that in this season of my life, it in all the things that I'm involved with, like I work for a national prison ministry, and I work for a national head office there. I've been, a part of, decision making and stuff where exercising some of these types of thinking out, ministry processes or something like that, it kind of gives me a platform to kind of, scratch that itch, if that's the right way to say it. Like, it's not being a full blown lawyer, but thinking out the logistics and legal ramifications of decision making and stuff like that. See, like, what I have found more than anything, especially in the season of my life, is that all those little inklings of a desire to of wanting to be different things finds its outlet in our lives, and it doesn't have to be specifically in that profession. It's just something about that profession, some characteristic of that, profession is maybe why you feel drawn to it. And if you can find that thing in whatever profession or whatever state of life, like there's even family life can draw out a lot of these things too, that if you can see that and that quality in it and pursue it, you can find meaningful outlets for it and still feel quite fulfilled that you're getting to express it.
Yeah, for sure. That's so true. So, guys, wow, this is going so fast. Okay, so I just downloaded. I'm gonna try to bring in some of. He's got so much music, you guys. Make sure. And your last name, is it pronounced Mola as
Oh,
well?
that's right. Yeah.
Mola. Okay, even Mola. So if you guys Google him, he's on Spotify, YouTube. What's your home base? Would you say it's more YouTube and Spotify or
I have
Instagram?
my own website, raymondmolamusic.com. Everything for that on all the platforms that I'm available, you can get it all there.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna put that in here, you guys. RaymondMolaMusic.com. I'm gonna try to pin it as well. So make sure you guys definitely add him. It's right here as well, and you'll see a lot of his content. Now, I'm probably just gonna play a little bit of it because I don't want them tagging me, which they might on YouTube. But we'll try to see if we can do this. So I'm going to bring in this video here as well. Um, is there any anyone that inspires you, like in music, that you look up to?
Nas has always been one of those people.
For
Um,
sure.
his lyricism, his style, his flow, just even how he puts together the thought behind what he's trying to express is just the whole thing's been amazing to watch him as an artist over the years and where he is now and what he's expressing even now in this season of his life, that he's got a love for music that I think is paralleling where I'm at, catching up
Hmm.
right now. That I kind of wish that I started as early as he did, but there's a part of me that also am thankful that I didn't, because there's so much of what I was communicating, what I when I was freestyling in the streets and stuff, that it wasn't the greatest message, and it wasn't even really well thought out. It was really trying to emulate other rappers and their message and talking about street life and just things that I'm looking back at like, what was I saying? Like,
Hmm.
so to be saying something that actually is meaningful to me because I'm in the season where I've worked out that my thoughts behind it and understood it fully, and now I'm just trying to find a way to communicate it. I feel, like I can stand behind what I'm saying at any given time. And
Yeah, for sure. Do you do you believe that like words are power? Like even when you listen to all these rappers, I remember on my radio show back in the day, I played Biggie, Smalls, and Tupac with their cousins were saying their last interviews. And basically, their cousins said, like, words have power. So he would always say, I'm going to die before I can't remember if he said before I'm 25 or before some age, and that's kind of what happened. But do you believe that like words are power? Like even in hip hop, we don't always have, and music in general, we don't have the best messaging. But do you think that the like words are power in hip hop too?
I believe something very similar to that, but it's more like what's your source?
Hmm.
Because I kind of think of us as vessels, and we can be filled with a source that breathes life, not only through the words we're communicating about, you know, how our outlook in any given situation. Like I've seen people in dark situations and they're ready to throw in the towel, and I've seen people in the very same situation and they're finding ways to encourage themselves. It's like, what's filling you? What from what place and source are you speaking from? And so the implications of that, yeah, I think is that the more destructive things you say, the more destructive energy and attention you're drawing towards, and especially if you're trying to keep up that lifestyle or whatever, the more you're going to get involved with it. I'm a street guy. I grew up in the streets. Like I've seen that firsthand. Like you choose that life to be a part of that, and you know you're going to go down paths. You're going to end up in situations that you may not necessarily have had the foresight to realize that that's actually where you were traveling. Um, and by the grace of God, I mean, there's many people I'm sure on the same vein who are like doing that, but not finding themselves at that in those situations. And that's a saving grace, I think, for those who miraculously get, don't end up encountering violence on high levels or crime and stuff like that. And whatever, but that's not my story. And yeah, so having something meaningful to say, and seeing that there are implications to the way you're thinking about life, and where you're drawing a worldview from, in what you're speaking about your future hope too, not just where you are at any given moment, is very important.
Yeah, so true. So we're going to play. I just actually downloaded Dear Mama and You, if that's okay. Is You, and that's a newer one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna play that one because that one looks like it's actually working. So I'm gonna play just a snippet of it, you guys, and let me know what you guys think. Give some honest feedback. Drop it in the chat. I know you guys will if you're digging it, vibing it. Definitely post in the chat what you think. But we're going to get this on right now, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
You make me feel brand new. God bless the world with you. You make me feel brand new. God bless the world. I remember playing in the park was just a young man. I used to draw lines in the sand to figure where I stand. A band of kids who never understood the economics, the reason why religious institutions tend to profit. But even then we could see beyond the trees that there's something that's wrong. How many people out there reaching but can't seem to reach God? I took a pause at these many religions, but nobody seems to be asking the question, how can we all be getting to heaven? And never satisfied by what they used to say, I threw my teachings away and start to pray a better way. I strayed hard to the end of myself until I understood there's a fabric to life that's woven deep within myself. So I don't sell what I'm destined to share, cause I could understand there's a purpose to life and there's a purpose why I'm here. To lead you through the darkest despair. I know we fall many times, but yo, the righteous got a savior who's near. You make me feel brand new. God bless the world with you. You make me feel brand new. God bless the world. I Bible in their home, but yo, it lives on the shelf. So when adversity comes, they must rely on the things that they know, and they don't know enough about him to know he's in control. But yo, the sweat that you bleed and the breath that you breathe is a testament. He is a part of our being, and I know that he feels all the things that I feel, cause I see that the scriptures reveal why we need him. The king sovereign, the God who the government bows down before, even when they ain't loving him. I know it's subtle, but the truth is God's governance looks so dang different than what we are accustomed with. With knees bowed and trees wowed, I seen clouds who proudly proclaim when God released sounds. It seems childish, but all of my being now knows the God who rose up from underneath thou. You make me feel brand new. God bless the world with you. You make me feel brand new. God bless the world.
Oh, I can't hear you there.
That was great. Like I love the words. Do you write like all your lyrics?
Yeah, I'm writing my
Wow.
lyrics and for some of the vocalist artists that perform with me as well.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I feel like words just come like very easy, like natural for you, you know? To put
Actually, all of my co-artists kind of are mad at me for that, because they'll call me and be like, "Yeah, we got to do the song together," and we'll find an instrumental that speaks to both of us, and then I'll call them back an hour later and be like, "Okay, I got my verse down." They're like, "What?" And some of them are struggling and for weeks and stuff trying to put together something, and I'm like, "I don't know, I just heard it and I just felt it, man. Let's go."
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was good. Hey, King Melody says I hear a Nas beat in there. Is there a Nas beat in there, actually?
That one, I'm not sure. I
Oh,
think it's got that old school
it's
sound.
definitely that vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the I can't remember if it's the Drifters or it's an old school song from like the 80s that they sampled into that.
Oh, sweet. I like it. Yeah, King Melody's a huge hip hop head as well. We go back and forth some nights. Like, I'm like, okay, what song do you think goes with this one? And we'll just have a really fun freestyled show. And he'll drop like Gangstar and Nas and, EPMD. Like, it's just a lot of fun. Kent Mister says, awesome. I love it. Hey, we got DJ Spartacus in the building. Good to see you guys as well. Let's see here. And Aliza says, Raymond, awesome, meaningful song. So she was digging it. Let's see here. I'm trying to see some of these comments. Odell liked it. He said, nice. DJ Filipino says, okay, Raymond's got beats. Nice. Let's see. It's funny because they've heard me freestyle and I'm pretty whack, but I just mess with people on my show. But I am pretty brutal, right, King Melody? I'm not the best at this. I'll be like, a cat jumped in a hat. What you think about that? Like, it's just so brutal. so it might be easier for you to write than me.
Place. You'll get there.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know about that.
We all
yeah. But so we're going to get, I can't believe the time's going so fast. It's crazy. It's already 8:30. Unbelievable. But we're going to definitely get more into your story as well. Because I know the book that you wrote, was really powerful. And that's kind of how we met. You guys, he wrote a book called Broken Hearted Joy. So if you could kind of bring people to the beginning of your story, I know it's a lot and that's fine. I definitely have time tonight, but I'm halfway through his book, you guys. So make sure you Google it. It's called Broken Hearted Joy. If you want to purchase it, I'm sure you can as well. But it's a really great story, very transparent, very open. And I love that you're so open about everything you've gone through. So if you could kind of tell people, the beginning of how things started out for you, kind of growing up with your family and just walk us through some of the pieces that you shared in your book too.
Yeah. One of the reasons why the book is so honest, first of all, is because it wasn't actually supposed to be a book. It was a healing exercise that I was doing. A pastor had challenged me when I did come to faith that I should go back over the course of my life and try to see where God was present there. Like now that I've had this experience and I believe him to be real, he's like, well, can you see where he was present in those situations, even the painful things, maybe especially the painful things, because it's those moments that people feel like, where's God in all of this? And now, like, I had this really kind of supernatural experience that brought me to faith. So it was a kind of a trying to go back and really vulnerably and honestly look at those situations, and then it kind of just parlayed into a book. But the journey starts for me at, like I said earlier, with at a really young age, asking big questions, being part of a religious upbringing that was, almost regimented and laid out, that this is the way you do things, this is how many times a day you pray, and this is the way you offer anything to God, and what he finds acceptable. And just finding within myself, like a conflict, that something was lacking integrity, that I wasn't being truthful. Like, he kind of sees this other side of me. What does he think about that? How many prayers is going to make up for all of that? And just being frustrated by the attempt alone. And I had done it for some years before, just kind of saying, you know what, unless God, some creator out there, can prove to me that they were real, um, in a real tangible way, that I could somehow know for myself, not hearing somebody else try to tell me what they believe or whatever. I just really want to hear from him myself, that I'm just going to cast off this stuff. And that kind of led to a life that, where, like, I was drawing the limits, where I felt like you know I stealing was wrong according to my religious belief. Was stealing still wrong if I don't believe in religion and God anymore? So I kind of started exploring in a very little way, and at a young age, with petty crimes and stuff like that, just kind of testing the limits, and found very quickly that not only was I finding praise and acceptance for these criminal things I was doing from my peers, because of how they benefited largely from a lot of what I was doing, and I was profiting from what I was doing as well. Um, that it was starting to etch out an identity that was at least truthful about who I was, like who I like the impulses I felt. Like, I almost had no restraint, and what I felt like is what I did. And I didn't I didn't think of it this way, like, back then. I mean, I have far more language, I think, now to communicate the struggle of a child, looking back at myself. But I was forming a worldview, and I didn't even realize that. And this worldview um, just continued to lead me into deeper and darker places. I got involved with bigger crimes as I got older. Um, Alcohol and drugs became a huge thing in my life, because I don't know that I necessarily liked this outcome, and the person I was becoming, and where I was finding identity. But what I did find is that, you know, at least, like, who's going to challenge me otherwise? Like, I didn't know anybody had any meaningful thing to say about religion. It didn't seem like any of my relatives, even my own family, could speak in a meaningful way about beliefs. And this is probably one of the huge reasons why I've studied apologetics for, pretty much the whole 12 years of my faith, so far. And it's largely because I want to be able to offer real meaningful and answers of substance to those who are also searching. And I mean, that's perfectly aligned with the work that I do now with prisoners and ex-prisoners and stuff like that. Like, not just going and telling them, well, let's go out there and try again, knowing that, we have this nature that's bound to fail, and what are we going to do about that, and how can we address those shortcomings and stuff like that. I had to have something more, more meaningful than that to say, that that was coherent, that they could understand, that um, at least gave them a framework for a different kind of worldview than the worldview I see that they've adapted that was very similar to my own. Um, so this journey, it, like I said, it was snowballing throughout the years and getting worse, and it kind of culminated at this place where, I got involved with a pretty violent offense where I was out at a bar one night and an altercation happened with some friends and family of mine, and it resulted in me stabbing someone that night 9 times in the chest. And it was it was like I'd been to jail a few times before, and for minor things like, you know, spending a couple weeks here and there for stupid things, but this was the first time I ever had, um, was looking at serious time, and that was kind of a wake-up call to me, but also because of the implications that the man who was involved almost died in this altercation. He was actually kind of like, I don't know if it's called clinically dead or whatever, but they were charging me with second degree initially because they were saying that for the first 48 hours he was dead, and they had him in a drug induced coma to keep him alive. And by the grace of God, this guy woke up. It's probably one of the only reasons why I'm sitting here right now, because that would have been a very different outcome had he not woken up in where I am today. And I think just knowing that I could get to that place and do that level of harm to someone started to almost bring me face to face with this conflicting ideology I had about life, this wayward worldview that I had formed, where, I mean, in music, and this is why, even coming to faith, like for a good long season, I had to kind of put away some of the music I had grown up with because it was very, gang related and stuff like that. And I'm hearing these themes perpetuated, and now I'm kind of living it out as well and seeing the implications. I'm like, is that what I wanted, to spend my life in prison? But I could totally see how every decision I was making was leading right there. Like, how could I not see that this would be the outcome? But it's almost like a willful blindness and ignorance altogether of just knowing that these decisions we're making and how we think about life are relevant. And so I, in an openness for change, I was welcomed out to a Christian church, and there was a pastor there doing a Bible study. I didn't go for a Sunday service, and I always tell people nowadays, including those who I work with, if you want to go to church, maybe it's not best to go on a Sunday. Sunday feels like, to me, a day where people who understand their faith and you know um ascend to it, like actually believe in this stuff, can go and express worship for something that they really understand and know. Wednesday happened to be, at most churches, the day that they have like a Bible study, and it's more interactive, and you can ask questions, and you get to actually learn so much more about the very foundation of this belief system, which was something that was hugely lacking in even my Islamic beliefs growing up. That those answers I was looking for the first time in my life, were getting answered. That I was starting to understand that, I heard this minister talking about original sin, and the implications of how it's actually not that we love God, it's the opposite, that everything inside of us wants to rebel against God. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds more like the life I've been living. That's perfectly aligned with the very struggle I've been having all my life. Yeah, you try to do good and stuff like this, but there's always this pull towards, and it seems like an easier drive towards what is wrong and a harder drive towards what is right. And so I was like, man, this guy's saying some stuff that makes sense. I need to find out more about this. And so I would attend, weekly, and try to learn about it, and found great comfort in learning about this during my time away. But I think that because of how foundational Islam was to my identity, like, I mean, born into this belief system, family all, ascribing to it as well, and relatives and cousins who I loved and walked with for many years. Like it I didn't feel like what I was experiencing was great enough to make me cast off my religious identity as a Muslim. I didn't even realize how religious I was until I actually tried to cast it off, and then I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is actually a part of me. And which is kind of funny because I was trying to run from religion, and it turns out I was quite religious.
Yeah, that's interesting. So going back, like how long were you in jail for? And um, I guess what was it like in jail? Like for someone that, I mean, is probably unfamiliar, hasn't been to jail. Like what could you say what it was like being in there, and how long were you in there for as well?
That last charge, which was kind of the big one, it was a 2 year sentence. 2 years plus a day is what is like the tipping point from provincial time into federal.
Hmm.
So this is the bare minimum for a federal sentence. And to be honest, that was actually kind of a blessing because provincial time I would consider is more harder time, even though it's shorter time. Um, Doing 10 years in a provincial jail, if there ever was such a thing, compared to 10 years in a federal institution, is like night and day. They There's a lot more freedom. They are generally equipped for people who are staying for longer terms. So not only the accommodations, but what you have, privileges too and stuff like that is drastically different. Um, the entire experience was like I couldn't even believe it. Like I didn't think this is what prison was, especially movies and music videos and stuff like that framed prisons in a completely different way. And I'd also say that tempering against an American versus a Canadian backdrop, like that's part of this disparity as well. Some of these places very much do exist. They're more so in the U.S. that we see communicated in film and stuff like that. And we do have some pretty heavy prisons here inside Canada as well. I know Saskatchewan and Manitoba have some places
Winnipeg. Yeah. I
really.
think I told you I visited Stony Mountain Penitentiary with because my not because I did anything crazy, guys, but I was at Stony Mountain Penitentiary because my grandma was trying to teach me a lesson, and she did a prison ministry there. So I remember going there when I was 13, 14 years old, and I'm like, whoa, like as soon as you walk through the gates and they shut, it's like you feel different. Like I remember at 13 feeling depression and just feeling like I could smell different stenches and stuff even through the concrete. Like it was crazy. Like, but then my grandma's like, just treat everyone like a human being. Like don't think of them, okay, they did this and they did that. Just treat people like how you would want to be treated. So that was the biggest lesson I learned. But going through the gates, I'll never forget that. Like you can just feel things like when you're going through there. And I know in the States, I've interviewed a few people that have been in jail for embezzlement. Like this woman was in jail, I think, for over 20 years for, theft in real estate. And she said it was like the feds were at the airport with guns. Like it was like a movie, basically. She was actually on BET for her story. So she said it was literally like a movie. And there's also a lot of racial prejudices, of course, and it's a lot harsher, I think, in the States. Do you think that you deserved more time, or do you think kind of by God's grace, he kind of gave you mercy in that situation with 2 years?
It's funny when I was immediately dealing with this, I kind of looked at it like I got off pretty easy. They were asking for 3 to 5 to start with, but they landed on this 2 years and a day, the bare minimum somehow. And I was like, I didn't know the word grace back then, unmerited favor, that this was like a mercy of God. But in these latter years of my life, I'm looking at it as a grace, but in a whole different way too, because I realized that maybe a part of it being the short time and a part of the struggles I had with worldview and religious identity and even the transparency of my own personal struggles, it was all kind of like God answering a far bigger question for me about meaning in life and how all of these things actually frame my pursuit. I mean, even if I no longer worked for a prison ministry tomorrow, I can't see that I would ever stop going to the prison. Like, I actually was doing this in my free time before I started working here because it just resonated with me so much that this experience was meaningful because of all the things that I understand now about what got me there, and now what I've learned since, in light of my faith, and how I feel like I have something so relevant to go and speak to those who are going through that struggle, of battling with something far larger than just the crime that they're doing, but I mean, even the worldview that they hold to, and how that's kind of part and parcel of how these outcomes are coming into play in different people's lives.
Have you ever met with the victim that you stabbed, or or do you ever know, if they forgave, or obviously I'm sure you've forgiven yourself or forgave the situation kind of thing, but have you ever talked with the victim at all or no?
Um, when when I came to faith, forgiveness is a huge, aspect of Christianity. Not only just receiving God's forgiveness, but then extending that to other people. And I felt kind of compelled, to want to find Him and, you know go through this process again. And then God kind of reminded me that, you know I I had an opportunity at my sentencing after, I think, either before or after sentencing, to express any sentiment I wanted, speak freely. And I remember even back then, even though I had not, um, you know, made a Christian profession or any religious profession really at that point, it's still, I realized what I had done, like what I had done was wrong, and how it affected this guy's life. And I expressed inside those closing statements, in the opportunity that I got to do that, my sincere apology to him and his family and stuff like that, and in as much as I could. What's interesting is I attended this prayer breakfast like 2 years ago, and I didn't know, like, they had, centerpieces that were named streets in all of Mississauga, and I just kind of randomly ended up at this table, and at the end, just before the kind of closing prayer, they told us that the reason why they put a street name on all of the streets is because they want everybody at the table to pray for that street. And it actually ended up being the very street that my crime had taken place on. And
Interesting.
I thought that was so amazing because in my work with Prison Fellowship, they've kind of built out my understanding even of the effects of crime, not just between victim and offender, but how, fear is perpetuated in entire communities when something like this happens, and stuff like that. And I was like, I never thought about all the neighbors, the people who woke up the next morning, people who were even affected by all the police lights in their neighborhood that night, that were impacted by this crime. That never occurred to me. And so I got to pray for this whole neighborhood now, and I was like,
It's
that's,
crazy.
that's a crazy level of restoration there, God.
That is crazy. Were you under the influence at that night? Because I think when I was reading your book, it was someone that was coming up to your sister, and you were kind of defending that, right?
Yeah, there was a guy who was actually following, my sister's friend out, and her boyfriend was there. So he and the guy got into the altercation. I was trying to break it up and kind of taking hits on both sides from the boyfriend and the guy he was fighting with. And my sister obviously didn't like to see that and jumped in and got involved as well to try to pull me out. And it was just a big shuffle of all this stuff happening at one point. And yeah, I was, intoxicated that night. Um, I wouldn't say like beyond recollection like that. You know, I think that would be, kind of like a cop out to say that, oh, it was the alcohol or whatever. I've been going down this path for quite some time, so like just the fact that I was carrying a knife that night, speaks volumes of where I was in my own thinking and what I was preparing myself for on a daily basis. But yeah, I ended up, pulling the knife from my pocket and stabbing this guy in the mix of all this stuff, and just taking off from the scene after that.
And where did all kind of that anger or just, whatever you felt in the moment, where did that all stem from or come from as well?
The,
Or even doing theft and kind of the road that the path you went down.
this is why, like, this work that even I'm involved with prison fellowship, I have a great deal of respect for the complexity of it, because it's easy to say that, my sister's involvement in it was the thing, and that would be enough for a lot of people. And a lot of people did actually kind of come behind me supportively, like, oh, you did the right thing, this and that. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with you on that. Like,
Mhm.
even if it was more detrimental to her, and I grew up in a family where my mother was abused often by my dad. I watched this growing up. So being protective of the women in my family and women in general was always like something that was very close to my heart. And my sister kind of felt the brunt of that growing up, even just with a super overprotective brother, and people kind of knowing that the extents I would go to protect her in beyond, you know, in ways beyond necessary, even. But there was that. There was just my own, dysfunctional worldview that I'd been describing, that I'd been formulating for all these years. Like, nobody messes with me, that kind of attitude, this very street, very carefree, careless attitude, reckless attitude. Um, the intoxication was definitely an aspect of it. So it's a very faceted thing. I don't think it was any one thing. It was a
Mhm.
culmination of so many things.
Interesting. So we're going to play you guys. I know he kind of already kind of mentioned a large piece of his story, but I have a clip. I think it's, let's see, I don't know if it's CBN or 100 Huntley Street. So after his book, which was interesting, his book is called Broken Hearted Joy, you guys. So make sure you guys Google that and look that up. I'll try to stick that in the chat. Brokenhearted Joy. I'll try to find the link and put in the chat so you guys could check it out. Purchase his book, definitely support him as well. It's definitely a good read. But I'm going to play this clip. After his book, he was able to get on a lot of TV stations to share his testimony, his story, which is truly amazing. So, in 5 minutes here, we're going to play this clip, and you guys will hear some pieces or maybe some more pieces of it as well. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
This balancing act of good that had to outweigh your bad deeds. I constantly felt this tension of not measuring up.
Raymond grew up in a Muslim home. He believed in God, but constantly struggled with the teachings of the Muslim faith.
I wanted to know the reason why we were here. What purpose did my life have? Because I didn't get an answer to those questions, by the age of 10, I decided that I wasn't going to follow Islam anymore.
Unsure of where he belonged, Raymond looked for approval from his peers, but he found trouble instead.
When I started pursuing crime, one of the first places that I found acceptance was in shoplifting. I would shoplift specifically candies and chocolate bars and stuff like that from my schoolmates, and that kind of surrounded me with, with a lot of friends. I felt more than just acceptance, like appreciated.
By the time Raymond reached his teens, his sights were set on much bigger targets.
When I was 16, I had started breaking into underground parking lots, start a car with a screwdriver, and we got a car started, and we stole it, and I'd gotten caught for that. That's when I landed my first provincial charge. By this time, I was just stealing for the sake of stealing.
Life in the fast lane began to catch up with Raymond, as his addiction to crime also became an addiction to alcohol, which played a part in him being expelled from high school.
I was just drinking. I was just spending away my days holding employment just long enough to be able to buy more alcohol.
And it was during a night out drinking with friends where Raymond went over the edge.
I was out at a bar and an altercation happened that ended up with me stabbing a gentleman there 9 times in the chest. Nothing was quite as significant as a wake-up call as the thought of possibly taking someone's life. But at the same time, I didn't know how to change. I had been so accustomed to this. More than 13 years had gone by.
Miraculously, the man survived, and Raymond spent only a short amount of time behind bars. Life slowed down just enough to give Raymond some much-needed perspective.
When I got charged for aggravated assault, 2 Christian cousins invited me out to a Bible study at their church. And I remember that was just groundbreaking for me because it was the first time I had a perspective about life that made sense. I still, because of the things I was taught in Islam, didn't want to accept a man as God and didn't want to offer him worship in that way.
Another thing Raymond wasn't ready to accept was that he had a problem. After he was released from prison, Raymond returned to a life of crime and addiction.
I was out here in where I thought I would be free, and I wasn't any more free out here than I was when I was in there, and that really led to despair in life. It's what happened next that really began to transform my life. The simplest way to put it is the Holy Spirit followed me home. I was sitting at an intersection. I had no license, a drinking and driving charge. I had, I think, a fake insurance slip in my glove box. I had alcohol in the car. I had marijuana in the car, so I wasn't even supposed to be operating a vehicle. And a cop pulls up behind me. And all of a sudden, that's when I heard the voice say to me, "They can come as close as they want to you, but unless I give the word, they cannot touch you." I can't imagine if this is God speaking, why he'd be protecting me. The cop turned right in the middle of the intersection and began going in the adjacent way. I drove two lights down the street and just saying, that couldn't be God. And all of a sudden, right in the midst of that doubt, another cop pulled out of a different parking lot and came behind me. And I heard the voice again. He said, "They can come as close as they want to you, but unless I give the word, they cannot touch you." And I pulled off from that intersection, trusting, hoping that he would protect me. The sirens went off, and I slumped back in my seat. I remember I was so angry, and I was like, this is just like you, God. And as I'm in the middle of that thought, the cop drives around me and takes off. And now I feel totally ashamed because that's twice now in this evening that I doubted that he would protect me, and both times he did. I had believed in God to be a certain way, but now he was revealing himself in a different way than what I thought. And it just terrified me. I was cut to the core. I fell to my face, just bawling my eyes out. I realized that he was in control of the police that night, and I knew it was the God of the Bible speaking to me, and that I had to get my hands on a Bible and learn what else did he say, what else is he saying.
Raymond immediately started going to church and poured himself into community.
I was going for everything. I was there on Sunday service. They had an evening service. I went for that. They had a youth on Friday. I went for that. They had young adults. I went for that. But I was just so hungry for the Word of God, and God was speaking so clearly to me.
Today, Raymond has a passion for reaching prisoners with the gospel as Prison Fellowship Canada's National Office Manager. He is also the author of 2 books, Broken Hearted Joy and Servants of Light. A young boy who once struggled with purpose is now a man devoted to helping others find theirs.
I think when we ask the question of what's my purpose or looking for meaning in life, God is so faithful. He does intend to answer it for each and every individual out there. In order to be able to comprehend his answer to us, take time. And so it's not that God doesn't hear your prayers or that God has somehow overlooked you. It's just that God will answer in his time.
Wow, I love that. That is so powerful. That's amazing. And just how you felt like God spoke to you, would you say that he really speaks to you in probably the strangest ways, the most interesting ways?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like one of the things that exercise of just going through the entire Bible I was doing in one of the rounds that I've been through the scriptures was just looking to find all the different ways that he's ever spoken to someone, and just asking the question, can you speak like that still today to me? And seeking him in those ways and hearing from him in those ways. I mean, through dreams, through other people, through the word.
Did you ever have inmates or your old friends or even family, people around you just think you're absolutely crazy? You've changed, what's going on, almost confusion when they look at you too?
Well, let me start by saying that when this all happened, I thought I was crazy. Like I had a real moment where I remember looking in the mirror and just being like, "You're hearing from God." Like I have an older brother who got diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was 19, and I seriously wondered, is this schizophrenia? Is this what it's like? Like just asking myself those questions, thinking that's what happened. Um, and yeah, it was very hard for all of my community, and I had, I have a huge family, like extended family and all that, hundreds of cousins, people that I saw all the time, friends, all that stuff, and I just felt like I needed to withdraw because this thing that was happening in my life was real. It was realer to me than tangible life. Like it was like this is something beyond. Like this is so I just didn't want. I knew it was not going to be received well. I was not at a place yet to speak about it or explain what's happening or even have a precedent to explain that, oh no, actually in the Bible this thing does happen. God does speak to people, like I just thought it was this one-off crazy thing that happened. And yeah, it was difficult for a lot of people for years, in my immediate social circle to kind of get to a place of, okay, maybe this thing is legitimate. And I think it's the longevity of how long it's been now. Like I said, it's going to be 12 years. Actually, this November 1st is going to be 12 years since that first like real impactful hearing from God firsthand myself. And and um and I think that they're like, okay, whatever did happen, something clearly just it was enough to just completely change everything in this guy's life. And maybe now people are more willing to hear about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's truly amazing. Are people ever afraid of your story or back away? Like once they hear, like say if you're dating someone or in a relationship, like do they kind of like, ooh, this might be a lot, or it may come up again, or it may resurface here? Like, do you ever, or even if it's not dating, if it's just in general, like when people hear your story, are they ever kind of like a little bit like back away or kind of a bit afraid?
I don't think the story um, uh, scares anybody, and at least if it has, it's never gotten back to me that that is so much a pain point for people as the choices that I do make today. Like I think that they're very intentional. Like I feel, a missional call to very focused things in my life. I dedicate a heck of a lot of time towards those things, and maybe at the compromise of things that I don't feel are as important. And that can be a hard struggle for people who maybe haven't found something that compels them to the same level of conviction yet.
Mhm. Did you notice like any common patterns, especially amongst men? Because I feel like men don't really have a lot of outlets, and we see this online as well, like with mental health. There's been different shows talking about it with men. I've done a few shows with men on mental health as well, and just how they don't really have avenues quite like we do as women, you know? Did you notice in the prison just any patterns amongst the men, like maybe struggling with anger or unforgiveness, or just like maybe coming from broken homes? Or did you kind of see a pattern there, like with the men?
You know, that thing I was saying earlier today about being quite religious and not even recognizing I was religious, like I thought I actually casted off religion, and I didn't
Mhm.
realize how intrinsic religiosity was in my thinking and behavior. I think that I've seen that in a lot of people that they don't even recognize how religious they are, and
Mhm.
how that's complicating their entire struggle, whatever that may be, um, on a behavioral level or whatever. But it's because of the implications of this religiosity that bring guilt and shame and those underlying things that are really the root causes of maybe a lot of why people feel stuck inside a cycle or whatever. I see that a lot. The worldview thing is also huge too. People looking for meaning and purpose and giving up hope altogether that it can be found, or maybe just because they've limited themselves, or are closed off from the conversation of believing that maybe there is something out there that you could ascribe to that allows you to experience the relational aspect of God. And yeah, hopelessness is undergirds so much of struggle that I've seen out there. And I walk with guys with such drastically different types of criminal activity that they've been a part of, and yet it's
Hmm.
kind of like a kind of a thing that undergirds so much of it.
Interesting. How you doing, DJ Diamond Lee? Good to see you. Hopefully your show went well as well. What can we do to kind of like, do you think there is good, um, just when someone comes out of prison, say if they've been in prison for a long time, right? Is there any programs or anything that could rehabilitate, you know, people that have been in the prison system and then come out? Or is there not really too much of that where people can actually get help too, like therapy, counseling, or just trying to get back in the real world, you know?
Yeah, the prison system in and of itself, like it's kind of this weird concept we have in our culture that we think that someone who's committed this deviant behavior, we send them away with other people with crazy other deviant behavior.
Hmm.
Um, they spend, 5 years with those people, and then they're going to come back and somehow be, upstanding citizens. It's such a joke sometimes, this concept, when you really pick it apart. And it's one of the reasons why I love being part of this ministry, and really trying to do this work that I think is right in line with what I've been sharing, that I think the issues are reconciling worldview. What do you think about your own personal struggle? Where does that come from? Where do you think it comes from? And asking those types of questions. What do you think you're here for? Purpose, and is there meaning behind any of this? That like, and really trying to attack some of those bigger ideologies that undergird these other expressions we see of criminal activity and rebellion, kind of showing themselves in a variety of ways. That it's far larger things, and yeah, so being part of a ministry who actually recognizes that and is working towards that, I think they're doing the best that you can do. Even me, like, in learning about some of the things I learned about faith before going to prison, it wasn't enough to kind of catapult me into, you know, being this upstanding person when I got back. I actually kind of went right back to all the things I was uh, like involved with previously, and it's because it was the only life I knew. One of the programs I'm responsible for here at Prison Fellowship is our Bridge Care program, which is a program that it seeks to partner returning citizens with healthy community from a local church, and this is men and women from local churches that our organization will train on how to walk with returning citizens, and there's curriculum around it, everything from budget to spiritual life to dealing with the relationships and all that stuff, and helping to give that framework. But at the end of the day, everybody has the responsibility on their own, and even teaching that helps people to recognize that you know any change that you're looking to make in your life, that responsibility is ultimately on you. But we're going to do everything we can to pour in and equip you so you have the right information to make a responsible decision.
Do you think that people can kind of fix things on their own because we're in such a society now where there's so many distractions and people are running to like everything imaginable just to kind of either cope or just kind of put a band-aid over maybe true trauma or pain, right? Do you think that just as humans in general that we can kind of fix these things on our own?
I guess part of the my own worldview now is that I don't ever think we were meant to. Um, I've really been dissecting this concept of a triune God, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, that Christianity teaches about, and that who were eternally there before creation, before any angels or the earth or human beings were created. He was and always has been Father, Son, and Spirit, and always will be, future tense. And I'm like, if community has always existed for all eternity, there's something in the reflection of us as human beings being created in his image that God actually absolutely wants us to not only seek out and find healthy community, but to, you know, to wrestle through the difficulties of remaining connected. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's not difficult to see that the further people segregate themselves from those healthy outlets, that's more or less where you find yourself in dark places, hard places, and getting involved with things that maybe you'll later regret or even regret at the time.
So true. So it's interesting how you kind of went back in the prison system, like, and now you can mention, I think you did during the show what your position is in prison, but would you have ever imagined that, okay, I'm in prison for a couple years for this, I want to just get out, get in the real world, and then God sends you right back. I don't know if did you go right back into the prison that you were in, or did you go to a different prison? And
Not
now you're like have a position there, which is truly amazing.
Yeah, I spent time there, but only as holding, until I got transferred to federal, and then in some previous stints that I did for a couple weeks at a time, I spent time there as well. So I actually was familiar with that institution. I remember when I started there, I walked into that institution from, like a completely different vantage point for once, and I was like, like if you've ever revisited the home you grew up in after
Mhm.
you're an adult, and you're like, all the time I used to think about this place, it seems so much bigger, but it's really that now you've grown, and the institution was kind of like that. The whole experience was like, this place used to be so massive to me, and now it's like this small little prison. But yeah, it's I didn't intend to go back to prison. I wanted nothing to do with prison. It's actually out of an evangelistic effort to um, to share the gospel with other people, which I was doing pretty much right from the beginning of coming to faith, with a brother from the church I was attending at the time. We were going out in the streets, and because we were reading in the scriptures, like go out in the highways and byways, and Jesus
Mhm.
commanding his disciples to go do this
Go
thing.
to Dundas Square, go to Dundas
Yeah.
Square.
So we were out here in Mississauga, and they've got the Mississauga version of the Dundas Square at 5 and 10, and we were like, oh,
Oh,
let's go out
sweet.
there.
Did
It's
you
very
go with David? Did you ever go with that type of crew? You know, the guy that's like a huge evangelist. He's now getting popular globally, like online, like he's everywhere, but he's the guy at Dundas Square,
yeah, yeah.
always, yeah,
I no,
talking.
I haven't like been out with him. Like we've had partners in parallel ministries that kind of overlap, but we've never actually
Okay.
any for introduction. But yeah, we were kind of doing this thing, but we were looking at the demographic of who Jesus and his disciples were interacting with in the streets when they went, and what we were seeing that was calling itself poverty in our streets. Like even the homeless guy had a cell phone. Like it was ridiculous. Like it was like these I I had realized something about my own journey where it isn't just poverty of financial poverty, it's poverty of spirit, feeling like
Mhm.
you actually lack something inwardly and desiring something to fill that. I was like, God, where can we find that? And he's like, where were you in life when you felt the most like that? And I was like, prison. I was like, okay, so
Oh, man.
that's where you want me to go. I'll go. So
That's crazy. And what's your position there again in prison that you do?
Prison Fellowship Canada is the organization
Mhm.
I employed by, and I'm a volunteer at the institution as an extension of chaplaincy.
Does it ever get hard where you're like, "Ugh, I don't wanna do this anymore, God, like, bring me somewhere else." Like, do you ever have moments where you might wanna quit or maybe you see a lot of, like, because 'cause you're dealing with heavy issues, right? It's not something easy all the time. You're also probably dealing with problems and different people that have gone through a lot of trauma, right? I'm sure that job could sometimes be stressful. So do you ever have those feelings like,
I,
sometimes I just wanna quit?"
I think I've developed good boundaries and
Mhm.
awareness around what I can actually accomplish. I don't think I kid myself to stretch beyond what I think is actually feasible for me to when I set out to do anything to accomplish. Um, but I also really temper anything that I do. by the person that I'm doing it for. If I'm going anywhere in the name of God, what kind of God do I believe in? Is he a God who can provide? Is he a God of endless resource? Is he a God of infinite power? Or is he some weak, unresourceful, in handicap God that can't do much? I wouldn't say there's anything in me that would subscribe to the latter. So I go out feeling not only compelled that what I'm doing is what believers are called to do, but that's the powerhouse that accompanies me in the going. And so,
Yeah, that's great.
things. Yeah.
For sure. If you guys have any now, I know, wow, the time's already 9:20. I don't know if you have a little, like a few more minutes, or if you got to get going, you could let us know. I want to respect your time as well.
No, I'm
Are
good.
you're
Yeah.
good? Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Because this interview is flying by, guys. And it was interesting how we met, you guys. It like when I was at church, that's how we met. I mean, I've seen you guys around, you and Justin and your kind of crew there a little bit here and there, but I'm always with my friend. So how we met. And I feel like this is interesting. This is how God truly works. This is why I know he's got to be real, because during that week, guys, I was Googling. Actually, I don't know if I should share so many of the ideas, but anyways, there's certain things that he's placed on my heart to do, and to start forming, and to maybe like write a book and do certain things. So that week I was Googling, okay, how long is this going to take? I'm not an author, I'm not a publisher. How much money is this going to be? Like, I'm thinking all these things, right? And logically, when I was Googling everything, it said, oh, it's going to take half a year. You got to write 500 words a day. You got to do this, 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 this. And it's going to be like $5,000 to $15,000 to publish. And you got to get an editor, and you got to get this, and you got to get that. And here my nerdy self, guys, is Googling. I'm Googling all this information. I'm writing it down. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this, man. I'm far from what I think I should be called, what he's calling me to, right? So it was interesting meeting Raymond that weekend, because I'm just, I don't even know. Oh, yeah, we met through one of our mutual friends. He came by. Haven't really talked to him. I've seen you around like a lot. I recognize your bomber jacket because I have the same bomber jacket. But anyways, so we started talking, and Raymond told me he wrote a book. And I said, well, how long has it taken you to write a book? He's like, oh, 48 hours, 72 hours. I was like, what? I nearly fell over. I was like, here that week, the last couple of weeks, I've been Googling all this research and trying to figure out this and this and this, and everything seems daunting. And he's like, oh, yeah, it only took me 48 hours, 72 hours. I could send it to you. So he sent it to me. And I think one night I read like 40 pages. I haven't read all of it yet, but it was really, really good. And it's called, I'm going to actually put the link again here so you guys can Google him, not only his website, but here's his link on Amazon if you guys want to support him. It's a really good book. It's called Brokenhearted Joy. And then he kind of told me a bit of his story. And then he's like, yeah, it didn't take me that long. He's like, I don't know why people complicate things. I was like, what? I'm the person that complicates things. So I just thought, man, God has such a sense of humor. And this is the second person I met. There was another woman I met, and she told me she's not a publisher. She's not a writer. She's not an author. God placed in her heart to write a book. And it was, I think it's called COVID, Cancer, and Christ, the 3 C's. She wrote it recently, and it's just a devotional book, and she gave it free to me. And she's like, just do it. You got to just do it. And she didn't care about the money. She didn't care about, but my brain always is circling all the time. Like, cause I'm such an overthinker. How is this going to work? How do I go from point A to point Z? Like, I'm always constantly overthinking. So anyways, this woman's book, she almost passed away, guys. I can't remember if she had stage 4 cancer, but it was pretty bad. And she just got healed from her cancer. So she was writing this book, giving it out to people. And recently, she just gave it out to, is it the princess? I don't want to sound crazy. Oh, I can't remember. I should probably know the name. All the UK people are going to be like, Honey Flo, you don't know this? I'm just going to say the princess. Is it the princess? I think in the UK that has cancer, right? There's someone in the royal family that has cancer. I don't know. Someone can post it in the chat because I don't want to sound crazy. But she ended up mailing it to her, and she actually responded back. It wasn't her team of people. It was actually a response from her. So she read her book. So you never know where life and what doors God is going to open, right? Even for you, like when you said 40, what was it? 48 hours it took you to write your book?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, like, I remember when I was even younger, a friend of mine, we used to kind of joke that, man, it'd be crazy to write like our life story. And I think there was kind of a glorified kind of version of the story we were thinking of that we wanted to tell about our parties and exploits and stuff like that. But we always had this idea of telling our story, coming to faith. And like I said, this was a kind of like a healing exercise of going back. I did, like, I wasn't intending for it to become a book and to even be sharing it publicly. But I started the writing because, I mean, these are things that I had experienced, and things that were easy to revisit and to talk about now in light of my faith. So, and especially with no expectation that anybody's ever going to read this. But at the time, I started volunteering inside a youth shelter, and I remember a lot of the guys I were meeting there, and they're like 16, 17 years old. Um, they were talking about upbringings and just conflict within their own thinking, that were right in line with the very things I struggled with. And I was like, I don't have, like, I'm only there for a set time, so I have to, move from person to person. But I was like, I have this story. I wish I could tell you, like, and spend time telling you my whole story. But I was like, how can I get this to them? And I was like, why don't I use the format that of the thing I use for the healing exercise, upload it to a blog, and just share the link with them. So that way it's really easy. Everybody's on their phone nowadays. Just share them the link. And the feedback I got from that was just so incredible, to hear how it was impacting their lives, to hear how it was challenging and helping them to reframe even what they were going through and finding hope. I was like, God was kind of picking at my heart to show me that if I shared it in a more public way, that it could be quite impactful. And that's what led to it becoming a book one day.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And it's not every day you meet publishers. Bedroom Bully, are you a publisher or author? Let me know. They say Amazon Kindle direct publishing is a blessing for upcoming authors. Interesting. Has anyone written? Let me know. Drop it in the chat. Yeah, it's not every day that you meet someone that is kind of, um, you know, not going the same path because you're on a different path, or maybe the topics, but kind of similar. So I thought that was cool meeting you as well, and just how that worked out. And your book is awesome and it's inspiring. And I feel like it's very honest. And I think today, I think besides just sharing your faith and, you know, kind of putting a glossy highlight, like how everyone does online, glossy highlights, even at church. Sometimes it's not always real, right? People I think really need to know your story and understand it in order to maybe be open to how you even know God. But if you're always glossing a perfection of your life to people, they're not really getting the true story or the true you or the true struggle, right? So, and I think we all have them too. So, what do you think? Like with the church, do you think there are certain things that we could kind of do better, or what we can do to just help others? Like what are do you have any ideas that we can really, I don't know, just get out there and just really connect and try to come from like a really honest place?
Yeah, there was a church that was doing these small group meetup type of structure, where it wasn't like a pastor preaching from a pulpit to a large group, and then maybe people leaving and going home, and that was their devotional for the week. It was really engaging small groups that were happening in house groups and stuff like that, and it allowed people to find a smaller group of people that they could really go deep with. And I think that's what you're describing. Like, who do you actually trust and know well enough from your church? Like, can anybody name 10 people from their church, these large churches, that they actually go deep with, that really knows them in this transparent way? And I'm really thankful that I had really good leadership right from the get-go. Like, the people that God had placed in my life were just, I'm so immeasurably grateful for. And I trust that it was a God thing, that He brought us together, and they taught me good values and good discipline, and just lent good insight to different things as I was kind of reframing all of life at that moment, trying to pick up the pieces of my shattered worldview and coming face to face with something supernatural I never believed even possible. Yeah, having those people in your life is definitely, it's going to make a huge difference.
What could you say to people that are still there? Because, I'm obviously in entertainment. It's definitely a lot of ups and downs, a lot of interesting. Sometimes you got a lot of people challenging you as well, or even laughing at you because of what you believe in. I don't feel like it's for the weak, although people may consider you weak for being Christian. I think it is by far also the hardest. I don't feel like it's for a weak person. I think it really is for a strong person, because you're kind of going against the grain of what you see right out there, and you do stand out whether you want to or not, but you're also not perfect. You have a lot of struggles and downfalls, and you're not perfect. That's why we need to lean on Him, or we need His grace. But what could you say to people kind of in entertainment, because it sounds like you've done everything, and there's a lot of people still there, like still doing drugs, or whatever it is that they're doing to try to get their fix, or to feel like that's going to fulfill them, whether it's like drugs, sex, alcohol. We see a lot of that. As DJs, we see it all the time in this industry, right? Empty relationships, in and out, thinking that that's going to fill us up as well. But what could you say, because you've kind of been there, you've seen things, you've been in jail, you've come out, you've changed, like there's probably not, I don't know if there's a lot of temptation going back there, like we talked about earlier, but what could you say to people that are kind of still there, that could maybe help them?
Mhm.
I know it's kind of a deep question or a loaded question, maybe.
No, like I said, especially in the work that I do, I come face to face with really the complexity of any one given situation. The Walking with one person who uses drugs, and uncovering what the motivation for that person is, versus another person with the exact same struggle, but for a whole bunch of different reasons. Um, it's really about, for the church, I think, to understand that in there is no blanket solution for this.
Mhm.
These are
Hmm.
real people, and they're complex, and they're diversely different in so many ways, and it takes getting to know who that person is that you're walking with, in a real, an authentic way, not just relegating to they're a drug user like this other drug user, and that other drug user I knew, or they're sleeping around like this one person who sleeps around the other person. It's not that at all. We got to get away from this, like, ridiculous idea that you know people are simply like robotic in the sense. We're
Mhm.
we're complex human beings, and so many, there's even good things that people do for the wrong reason. You could want fame and pride and all kinds of, gaining acceptance and feeling accepted and all kinds of things. So, I mean,
People
when
pleasing, there's
people,
so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you know that's the reality, then you definitely understand that um, there's never going to be a blanket answer to a question like that. It's really about
Mm.
getting to know the person in front of you who God has placed, who has a struggle, and trying to understand what their struggle is, and maybe understand them even beyond their struggles. So maybe you can, God will give you some insight into helping them to find freedom from that thing.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Because there's so much that we got to work on, right? Like every single one of us as a human being. It's not even. But I do notice sometimes, like when you're in the church, it's like us versus them, or you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like there's a
Right.
um like division. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to go there because they're kind of doing that, and sometimes you could definitely feel judgment, right? So
Well,
I guess I'm learning too. It's kind of tricky though, like, but I am learning, like even interviewing so many people, like close to 300 people in the last 4 years. I've sat down with so many different people, and the fact that they actually trust me with their story, and we could be totally polar opposite, but we could sit down and have a great conversation. And I think that to me is a true blessing. Like it's made me realize that maybe I could have been a little bit judgy in the past. Maybe I could have been in this little bubble, you know, and not really seeing the real world out there. But I've also learned a lot meeting so many different people. So
if
you're saying that it's kind of showing their like love like to others, right? Or getting to know them first before you say anything, I guess, or talk to them.
Yeah, if the goal is for us to avoid the unrighteous, then I have made a huge life decision, like to go in the wrong place of prison ministry, because you know, like this is the cream of the crop. But
True.
when you have a right biblical worldview, that this is actually a reflection of you, me, and everybody else. Every pastor, every preacher, every whatever, that this faith is not about us and how
Hmm.
righteous we are. It's about Jesus and how righteous he was, and thank God for him. It reframes
Hmm.
everything. So getting that right is huge.
But doesn't it become tricky because it says like bad company corrupts good character? So is there kind of a separation you got to do? I don't know. Like because people, I don't know. I just feel like yeah, there's so much need. Like we're seeing it. I see it in entertainment. Like I see it daily. There's so much need, especially with so many things coming out now. Like it breaks my heart with all the artists and all the people I looked up to, and just seeing and researching more and more and more is kind of, it almost takes you down a dark tunnel. Like it's crazy, especially if you're like say really against human trafficking or sex trafficking. It's just like, oh, I don't know. As a DJ, what do I even play anymore? Do I even stay in this space anymore? So, but I guess yeah, I don't know. I think I lost my question there that I was thinking.
Yeah,
But what are your thoughts on that? Like, oh yeah, bad company corrupts good character. So is it kind of like a fine line of, you
I,
know,
I was hearing something different, and I think I was answering different than what you were asking, because it sounds like you're talking like any of these recent, mainstream things that you're hearing about someone else, but not someone I particularly know.
mhm,
I meant it, I think, as people that are in my actual circle of influence and who have the ability maybe to influence me, and knowing the
mhm,
difference. Like I think knowing where you stand in a relationship to someone, that you're open to where they lend you good influence in your life, but you're also not naive, that
mhm,
you're wise enough to recognize maybe the places where they don't. There's lots of guys, especially doing this work, who um, I'll have a moment where we'll go sit down and have a coffee, and we can have a great conversation. I know they're going to use drugs right after they leave with me. It doesn't mean I'm going to go and be like, oh, all right, let's continue to do all these things together. We
mhm.
we draw the right line somewhere, but
Yeah.
so there's another concept in scripture of being in the world but not of the world. It's
Mhm,
allowing yourself to be parts of community, because that's the place that needs our presence as the church. But being wise enough in even engaging in that pursuit, that you understand those types of boundaries to draw, and having even good people around you who can call out a boundary like that. I've had lots of things throughout my journey that I'm so thankful for the leadership here at Prison Fellowship and how they've lent to growing my own awareness of things that I took for granted and didn't see clearly beforehand in my own journey. So, I mean, it's good that we're not, like an island ever trying to do this thing by ourselves. That you have people you trust, who are even completely separated from these communities that you're trying to reach, but who are aware of it and that you can dialogue with and talk about the actual challenges of what you're facing, so that you're not just left to yourself to try to decide how are you going to navigate it. You have other people weighing in.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't know if you've ever been in a weird place where it's like the church doesn't quite accept it, but then people out there don't quite accept it. So you're just kind of like in this middle place, like these two worlds, if that makes sense. Like it's not what they think that's in that box. It's kind of like meeting Father Damien. He's a DJ and he's a house DJ on Twitch. That's a full-time priest that works with York Region Police as well. And I mean, he'll just play house music and do prayers in the middle of his show, but it's very powerful. It's short prayers, but it's flooded. The chat room's flooded with hundreds of people putting up prayers, right, of what they need. And I think it's beautiful that you could do it in such a unique way. It doesn't have to be in this box, But I think when people in church, some people that I've encountered anyways, when they're in this box and see it, that's all that they could see. So anything outside of this box is like wrong. Like you shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be having a show, you shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Have you ever been in that place too, where it was kind of, where you're kind of in that middle place, or?
I'm sure that there's still Christians out there who don't think that rap music is like they think rap music is demonic or something like that. And
Well,
I mean,
yeah, definitely. I hear that a lot. Like people have told me I should quit kind of the show, and what purpose does it serve, and this and this and this. And it's
yeah,
just like, but you haven't been on my show. You haven't seen the hundreds of messages or the DMs that I've gotten from people that are going through stuff. You don't know how many people have passed away, so to me, it's just like, it's very hard, like, being in that middle place of trying to be accepted from, say the church and what you do, even as a DJ or being in entertainment, and seeing their, because they're looking at the outside. They're not really looking at your heart, right? But then also being in this place when you're surrounded by a lot of stuff that maybe you don't want to intake or watch, like a lot of shows. I used to intake a lot of shows. Now I don't much anymore, for my own, walk, or the things that I need to do, like for my own peace or sanity, right? So,
I had started a small group earlier this year where we've been doing kind of like a movie night once a month. We'll get together and we're not watching specifically Christian films. We're watching anything that like I want to empower them to go out and make the choices of whatever movies they would normally choose. If they think that there's something cool, relevant, whatever, something about the movie that appeals to them, we'll bring it in and giving each person a turn to host it. But I'm actually like, really good at connecting themes that I see in anything from movies to any of the arts to life in itself with scriptural ideas. So we have dialogue after watching the movies about, these concepts and, well, how did they portray that? And like, how does that resonate with your faith? And, like, what things you think are, valuable or ethical or any of those things. Because you could see a movie about two guys robbing a bank and they have some justification, so they're kind of the protagonists of the movie. Like, them getting away is what everybody's cheering for at the end. But when we're talking about the discussion, it's kind of like, well, we actually start picking apart some of these ideas that people are left with from the movie and seeing whether or not like that's actually a substantiated thing. Was there a way they could have avoided or made life decisions that led them in a different way that they wouldn't have to end up robbing a bank, like, so
Mhm.
we get into some really deep dialogue, but it sounds like in the vicinity of what you're asking as a question, because I mean, if someone felt like, if we were showing horror movies have this reputation all throughout Christian, well, Christian history, and as long as horror movies have been around, in the last 80 to 100 years maybe, that half the church is divided on, oh, you absolutely should not see these things, and then the other one kind of giving license to, oh, you watch whatever you want, like it doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
never tell anyone that what you should be doing is trying to find your way to falling into any one of these groups. When you
Mhm.
understand that what the Bible is welcoming us into with God is a relationship, and that's a individual and corporate relationship with Himself and with other believers, we should be prayerfully asking the question about, what do we feel like God is saying about this? So if two of us came out, 10 of us come out to movie night, and someone feels a conviction that, hey, that's the movie we're watching tonight, something in my spirit just feels like I shouldn't be watching it. That's fine. So, I mean, whatever that might mean, if you're gonna sit it out in the hallway or decide to just forfeit that night and go home, or whatever that means for you, that's acting on the conviction that you feel in the spirit. That doesn't mean that I need to act on your conviction, especially in an area where something is not explicitly spoken about and given direction about. Somebody couldn't come to me and tell me, sex before marriage is one of these things I feel convicted of. I feel no conviction about, because I'll be like, well, there's a scriptural precedent for this particular topic, but for these topics that are not spoken about, then it's a, are you asking and trusting in the leading of the Spirit, um, in how you're discerning how you can navigate this issue.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of growing different way. I won't watch horror movies at all. I've researched so much stuff about things that are on set, producers, the stuff they've seen, even the producers of The Exorcist, and the people, like, actually when you guys start researching it, it's kind of crazy. It's like going down the rabbit hole of like researching Diddy and all these elites and everything that's happening. Some people may think it's conspiracy, but if some of these people are actually saying that we're there and testifying to it, then even the producers. So I heard some wild things. So I'm like, nah, I'm staying away from that, man. But other people may be, I guess, fine with it. Like Father Damien told me he watches it. I was like, "What? You're a priest?" And he's like,
That's
"Oh yeah, I use it. I use The Exorcist as a demonstration on my thing." I'm like, "Oh, dear
exactly.
Lord." I'm like,
That's the whole
"No,
bullshit about it,
no."
because imagine that you're going to tell someone, oh,
But then
all
I
the
have my own music. I listen to music that people probably don't approve of, right? So we all got, but for me, I stay away from it just because I don't feel comfortable. I feel like a lot of the things that are happening in movies are actually happening. Um, and you guys should look up who actually owns the movie industry as well. You would be very fascinated that the messages they're giving us are actually happening. That's like programming. That's for a purpose and for a reason. But anyways, the more I talk about it, people will just say, "Ah, Honey Flo, you're a conspiracy theorist," because I'll get that too. But I don't know. I know, so bedroom bully, that's hilarious. Well, yeah, okay, fine. I don't stay away from romantic comedies. Um, I don't stay, she says, they say, this sounds like Twitch's Our Radio, or Shero Squad, or the 10 other names she goes under. I have a feeling that's this person, I'm sure. They say I stay away from romantic comedies. They make me feel real uncomfortable. Whatever. Anyways, Google, I'm not going crazy, guys. Google the producer of The Exorcist. Google what they saw on set, what started happening to the actors when they're filming this movie, and all the stuff that happened. So before you bug me, I want you to Google that, and you will be fascinated with the stuff that actually happened, which is crazy. So yeah, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to be scared. you know. But anyway, so we are gonna wrap up, guys. I can't believe it's already been, oh my gosh, it's been almost 3 hours. I can definitely still chop it up with you. But one thing I was going to ask you is, what do you see like for your future? Is there anything that you kind of have in mind, or anything? Yeah, anything you see for your future?
The last 12 years for me have just been really taking it almost day by day. Um, I never expected to be involved with music. I never expected that music thing would grow into what it's slowly growing into. Being able to work with all these other artists, all of the things that have come through it. Um, I never expected to go back to prison and and be part of a prison ministry. None of this stuff could have ever been the way I wrote my story. And I think that one of the things I really wanted to be in control of when I was younger was writing my own story. I really, and I so much as say this in one of my tracks, that I've given the pen to him, and I'm very open to what I see him leading me towards, and I don't really have a lot of ideas of what that might be, which is kind of how I temper being open to just about wherever he says to go. So um, yeah, I really couldn't tell you what it looks like, but I know that he's writing a great story, and I look forward to it.
So you don't even, but have you learned to just like trust him? Like just let go of your plans, whatever they may be, and just trust whatever story he's writing. Like, have you found that easier over the years? I still struggle with that. I'm like, give me the rope, like tug of war, like a lot of times with him actually.
If I start trying to write something of my own making, and
Hmm.
I start to feel that resistance in it, because I mean, like I said, this is a very relational thing God has welcomed us into. We just have to have the awareness to recognize how he's speaking to us, and when he's tempering something that we might be pursuing. But if that's what you're learning to cultivate, and I think that's what I've spent the last 12 years cultivating, is my ability to hear from him beyond my own voice, and even the voice of whoever, that I can kind of get a sense if I'm going the wrong direction, and it brings me back quickly. So I'm not straying as far as I needed to in the past before I learn, hey, turn back. You may be going off road here.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So then, how do you just encourage the guys too, like in jail, like just by being there, encouraging them? Like, what are some things that you do?
It's mostly a listening game, to tell you the truth. Um, Everybody's got a story to tell, and you want to understand the way they see their story, um, and even what important parts they not only share, like what they feel is relevant in their story versus what they talk nothing about. Like, people have families, and sometimes they can sit there and talk to me for hours and never mention anything about their family. I find things like that peculiar. So at some point, I'll get around to asking about it, and delving into different things like that, and just trying to get to know people.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a powerful, easy message, like that's what I think sometimes is just powerful, is just sitting there and thinking, yeah, that's all it takes, because Jesus really sat down with the people, right? He sat down and had meals with them and hung out with them. And if anyone wants a good drama book, I mean, there's a lot in the word. There's a lot in the Bible when you think about it. Like, I don't think anything surprises him. Um, so I definitely see him sitting down with the people and loving people like where they're at, regardless of what people are doing or what they're not doing. I think that's one thing that Twitch and being in this online space has actually taught me. I haven't always done it correctly a lot of sometimes, but I think over the last couple of years, that's what it's really taught me, meeting so many different people from different walks of life, different beliefs, different values, different lifestyles. You know, um, I think he's kind of teaching, um, like giving me that lesson, you know? So. Yeah,
Mm.
it's great. Yeah. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. I know it's been almost 3 hours here. Is there anything you would like to say too, that you have coming up, or if you want to, if there's anything that you'd like to market or just kind of mention to everyone that's listening tonight, you can as well.
Yeah, I've got a new track coming out tomorrow. It's called "This Is Love." Um, it's kind of the storyline behind it is trying to maybe, especially from what I've learned, but also what I've experienced about God's love. What might He have to say about love from His perspective? We all know what we think about it, in all the different ways that people think about it. But what might He have to say about it? So I'm trying to almost write from His vantage point. I think it's an awesome track. Check it out.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to look for it in my Gmail again, what you sent me, but I don't see it at all in here. So I just got another track I pulled, you guys. We're gonna just play it for a little bit before we leave, and drop in the chat what you guys think. I like his music. It kind of gives that old school type of feel, which I'm all about. So yeah, let's play it. It's called Dear Mama. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Drop it in the chat what you think of it as well.
Dear mama, I pray God bless your soul, cause I know how the suffering in this world could turn us cold. But I see what He saw when He chose you, a real Renaissance woman, how He formed you. The bold virgin who's searching for something more. Faint knock with your heart as the door. Let me in once more, cause the wicked never enter my rest. As for you, they gon' know that you're blessed. I stress off in conviction through the ways of the Spirit. I thank God that most often you'd heed when you hear it. I tried to lead you and keep you safe, and so I led you on a path from the manger to a foreign escape. You stayed faithful and stuck to the plan, and even though it wasn't written yet, you cared for this king as a lamb. So no strand of your hair would I not know. I got you. Though many obstacles would rise to try to stop you, and though it's not true the things that they say, you stayed humble to walk like the servants who pray. And yeah, I know it's not easy to see me receding, becoming less of who you knew to what I now believe is divine timing and assignment from the highest. I've cultivating hearing so I can walk it out and stride with the high master over terrains that bleed disaster, a hard pasture over sheepish laughter. And if you can't believe the words that I say, take the miracle of faith to which now many are saved, and say praise for the King who does not fail to hear us. The real testimony, God is always near us. So when the storm comes attacking your peace, remember what I'm about to do makes you reign over beasts. And keep my words I have spoken so dear forever close to you, and let the Holy Ghost remind you that I broke for you. An image I know will break your heart, but it's better for one man to take the price it cost than for the whole world to bow at His throne. With every fate well known and knowing full well we ain't making it home, I press on when they lead me to zones where everything is unknown, and try to strip me of the things they don't know, and throw dice for my rappers and robes. I got them right in my sights. I always knew the way this path would unfold. So don't cling to the things you don't own, because I'm making it new. It takes a bit of an adjustment, I know, to move on from the tangible me to see with spiritual ease. These things I purpose for my people beyond. So stay strong when you think that I'm gone, cause I'll be gone for a few, but I'll be back, that's my promise to you. I'll never leave or forsake your love. In fact, it carries me through. That's why I wrote this heavy letter for you. This world boasts of its prisons, the uncircumcision of hearts, to cut away the default, to play the victim. I see hearts all around me, though I'm ready to plant. I see a loss of identity I wrote in the sand. From the east to the west, how much further to go? For they know that my love for them is purer than gold. My soul grieves for the many who sneered and never searched for me. And yeah, I care that you reach me. Dear mama, I pray God bless your soul, cause I know how the suffering in this world could turn us cold. But I see what He saw when He chose you, a real Renaissance woman, how He formed you. The bold virgin who's searching for something more. Faint knock with your heart as a door. Let me in once more, cause the wicked never enter my rest. As for you, they gon' know that you're blessed.
That's a great song too. What did you guys think? Drop it in the chat. Is it easy coming up with like lyrics and just putting everything together?
That one, I I think I struggled with probably more than I would struggle with a normal song, just because I wanted to do justice. That I was really taking the liberty to write on behalf of Jesus what he might say to his mother to encourage her that he's about to go down this difficult road that's not going to make sense to her. And yeah, so I wanted to do it justice. I didn't want to misrepresent the heart of it. And it's so crazy because my mom turned 65 this past summer, and she had some expectations of where I would be in my life um, by this point, married and with children and all this stuff, and she wants to see that as a mother, as a grandmother, for me. And it's you know the heart desire of any good parent. um, I haven't, I'm not rushing to make that happen for her, uh, to find, something. To me, it would just feel like a checkbox. Like I've done it. I've accomplished it for her sake. I really trust God's timing and all that stuff in my life as well. So I could understand when I was thinking of Jesus. He's 33 years old. He's not married. He's about to go take on a on foot ministry of traveling all over Jerusalem, preaching, or Israel, preaching, this message, and then ultimately knowing that it's leading him to the cross and stuff like that. For 3 years, or probably even more than that, what was his mom saying? And there was something that I was able to really connect with in parallel. And once I honed in on that, I was, all the creative juices just started flowing, and that's what came out.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like you have a pretty big family. Like no blind dates, your sister or your mom trying to set you up or anything? We talk about aisle 2, by the way, on my show. Aisle 2 is if you're single looking for love, or if you're in a relationship restoring the love. But people think I'm quite nosy on Twitch because I'm always bugging them. I'm surprised they didn't bug me in this interview. Actually, I'm very impressed, guys. I'm very impressed with you guys, because normally they bug. I don't know why they pick certain men to bug when I interview them, but I'm like, I've interviewed like close to 300 men, guys. Like, you guys pick and choose the guys that, but I understand because I bug them. So, but yeah, oh yeah, King Melody's like, oh, here she goes. Bedroom bullies laughing. No, but I'm just curious. Like I would think if you're Guyanese, yeah, I would definitely see your family being on you a little bit, but they don't try to set you up on a blind date or anything.
No one's trying to set me up. I think
Oh no.
I think they know better. Maybe I don't know.
They know better? Aw. Your sister seems cool,
It's all cool.
was
Yeah,
able to meet some of their family, and your mom looks like your sister. She looks so young. Oh my goodness. She doesn't look 65. She's really beautiful, pretty.
you you made her day with that.
Oh, yeah? No, she is. I didn't realize that. I thought that was your older sister. I was like, "Oh, shoot, she looks young," but yeah, you know what? It's definitely his timing for sure. But we all kind of get that pressure, definitely. I think my family's given up on me. Probably given up on me as well. Well, I don't know if your family, my family definitely has. So it's like whatever. But that's interesting. Do you guys have any last minute questions before we leave as well? Drop it in the chat. I'll wait maybe 1 minute and then we're going to definitely wrap up here because it's been, wow, 3 hours. But thank you for sharing too. I appreciate that. Like everything that your story and everything that you've shared. Make sure everyone adds Raymond, MOWLAmusic.com, you guys. Check out his book on Amazon. He's doing really great things. If you need a speaker or someone, to share their story, then definitely DM him too. He would be great to, go across country because we have a lot of Americans in this room too. that watch the show. So if you guys need anyone to help, then and King Melody's story is, I think, a little bit similar to some of the things he shared with me on one of my shows. So I was hoping to link you guys up, King Melody and Raymond together as well. So okay, so I don't see any questions here. So yes, so we will definitely wrap up. But thank you again for joining me. Make sure you guys are adding Raymond MOWLA as well. Flirt says they enjoyed all 3 hours. It was a great episode. I loved it. Okay, awesome. Yeah, drop it in the chat. Any comments on this show? I am going to be looking for more like stories like this and just inspiring stories, or if you've gone through a trial or some type of hardship, but also, hopefully some type of positive message you could give people. Just DM me and I'll see if I could get you on my show as well. I think I was on a raid earlier, you guys. It was called Twitch and Chill. So we are going to go back and support that raid. I think RL Breezy is on. So copy the raid message and we're going to jump. So basically we raid out from this show to another show. We bring everyone in this room and then we go to another show. That's kind of how Twitch works. You'd be great on Twitch, by the way. Are you familiar with this platform at all?
This is the first time that I was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of musicians, singers do very, very well, like on Twitch. Like hundreds of people are in singers' rooms. It's basically a streaming platform for anyone. Fitness shows, there's talk shows, DJ shows, sports shows, gamers, like anyone that streams. Pretty much Twitch is a great place to check out. So yeah, you should definitely look into that because I think your music can go far here. People would enjoy it.
Cool.
All right. Okay. So Eliza's got a comment here. It says, very interesting testimony. Thank you, Raymond, for coming through. It looks like Flirt stuck around for the 3 hours too. She enjoyed it. And definitely drop some messages for him too, guys, to catch the replay. All right. So we're going to raid out, guys. Stick around for the raid. Copy my raid message. It's just going to be a minute to go through here. We're going to go to DJ RL Breezy out of Chicago. So definitely stick around for that, guys. And thank you guys for coming through. Make sure you guys are adding, of course, under my new channel, DJ Honeyflow Music is my DJ page. And this page is DJ Honeyflow Talk Show. And definitely drop a message too. All right, we're going to see if this raid just takes about a minute to go through. Let's see. Hopefully I don't know if you had dinner, but hopefully you had. Are you doing it at work? It looks like a work location there. You got good Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. Well, it worked out well. Okay, so is this raid going through? It's just taking a minute, you guys. So thank you again for coming through. We got Eliza, Flirt, Kent, Mr. as well, King Melody, Bedroom Bully, Eliza, and M. Lewis as well. Thank you guys all for coming through. Appreciate you. And anyone else I missed? M.L. Lewis, yeah. Let's see. And we'll see you guys in these Twitch streets this week as well for other shows. Okay, let's see if this gone through. Okay, yeah, looks like it did. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. And we'll definitely be in touch then as well. Okay, all right. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, you guys.